So when I'm out hiking, I'm not always going to encounter animals to look at, but there's always signs of them around. And one of the most obvious is scat or poop. So right here, I see a little scat on the trail. It looks to me kind of like the poop I would find from my dog in the backyard. So that's going to lead me to think this is some kind of dog, like a fox or a coyote. Now looking inside of it, I can see a number of seeds, and the seeds here all seem to be from the berries around us. So looking at the trees around, I can see this tree has all these tiny little berries growing inside of it. And then if you take one of the berries and open it up, you'll see the same seeds that we found in our scat. So that tells me whatever left this behind was eating from the tree or from the ground underneath of it. So there's a lot more berries on the ground here. Now in North America, there's only one canine species that can easily climb trees. And we have them here. They're called the gray fox. So looking at the scat on the ground, seeing that it's canine and filled with berries from the juniper tree, I'm gonna lead to this being a fox left up behind, but there's always the possibility of a coyote. And the one thing that leads me down the road to think it's a coyote is just the size of the scat. Coyotes are gonna be significantly larger than the gray fox, so they're gonna leave behind a little bit of a larger scat. And even though the coyote can't climb the trees like the gray fox, he could forage for the berries on the ground right here. So we know that something's been coming down this trail, and now we're gonna keep our eyes and ears out for any critters or wildlife that might cross our paths. So we could potentially eat these juniper berries. They're not a poisonous berry, they just really don't taste all that good. It's a very, very piney taste. This is actually a conifer tree, similar to pine trees. So these are actually not berries, they're little pine cones. And gin is distilled from this kind of berry. So if you ever drink gin and that kind of piney flavor that you're tasting, that's the flavor of the berry here. And right now they're actually quite juicy. We've had a lot of rain come through this year. So yeah, the juniper berries are fully growing on the juniper tree. Now this is interesting. If you look here, you can see this is actually a different plant. So the juniper berry is a conifer, but its leaves grow kind of like scales. They call them scale-like leaves, and their cones look like little blueberries. This tree over here with its needles, this is a pine tree, and this kind of pine is probably pinyon pine. Now, if you're not sure, you can get one of your field guides and look through here, and you'll see all the different kind of trees and conifers we might have in this region. Let's look through and see our different pine trees. So the different kinds of fir trees, they grow bigger, longer pine cones. Don't see any of those here. And then when we come down, let's say, all right, pinyon pine tree. They're kind of a short evergreen with a short needle, only has 2 coming off instead of 3 like this tree over here. So looking closely, I'm going to observe that, yep, there's 2 little needles coming off of each spot on the branch here. So I'm going to conclude that this is a pinyon pine tree, which is pretty common. Pinyon and juniper seem to grow together well. And all throughout Arizona, we have what they call pinyon juniper forests, the kind of right elevation, right climate for those 2 trees to grow. So if you're in a pinyon juniper forest, keep your eyes out for the juniper berries and the small needles of the pine tree. This is standing out to me. Beautiful red flower right on the side of the trail here. Now again, I don't always know the plants I'm going to encounter, so if you take out your field guide, I'll go to our flowers section. Got a good amount of yellow flowers, but let's look at our red flowers page. Trying to match this up with what we see. Looks like to me, we've got a beautiful skyrocket blooming here. Beautiful. We're already in the late autumn here, but still enough sunshine, still enough warm temperature, still got some wildflowers blooming. Looks like we got some more scat to investigate. Now this one's much bigger than what we saw earlier, and I don't see as many seeds inside of it, but I see a lot of hair. And hair tells us this is a predator. This scat is pretty dried out. for me, not that gross to pick up with my hand, but yeah, definitely wanted to investigate a little further. I can see really coarse deer hair in here. Definitely mountain lions are the big predator that can take down the deer. I'm curious what this is though. I think this is a piece of bone. Yeah, that's what this is. So we got a nice chunk of bone partially digested right in there. Bunch of hair, more bone down here. So yeah, this is the sign of a big cat, for sure. Well, now we found what's left of some of our yellow wildflowers from the summer, and got a lot of yellow flowers to pick and choose from. So looking at our field guide here, got a bunch of similar looking, you know, yellow, nice even petals, but the way the stem kind of branches out over and over again, plus these kind of lobed leaves towards the bottom, that makes me focus in on this guy right here. So it looks like we're looking at some yellow ragweed. But yeah, you can see all the different flowers have similar looking petals and colors, but you can tell by looking at the stems and the leaves the difference between them. So yeah, I'm kind of focused in on these stems right here and looking at the fact that it branches over and over again, combined with the kind of lobe leaves towards the base of the stem. It looks like most of these yellow flowers have kind of big wide leaves. This one doesn't branch out as much. Over here, the leaves don't quite look right. The flower petals are off. So yeah, looking at everything, it seems like the petal, the stems, and the leaves of this yellow ragweed are what we're looking at here. Wow. So right here we have some pretty big, significantly sized juniper trees. And the juniper is one of the most long-lived trees out here. They actually have really cool adaptations that allow them to survive the periodic droughts that hit the region. So as the tree is growing, it kind of has this nice, soft, shaggy, fibrous bark. But if there was a cycle of drought, well, the tree might not be able to support all of these branches, so it'll stop sending nutrients to specific parts of the tree. That piece of the tree will kind of die and fade away, but the rest of the tree will be preserved and protected. So that leads to trees that sometimes look almost like half dead, half alive. And I can see over here, the tree has started to kind of kill off this particular branch. That might not be because of the drought, but because of all of these little holes in the side of the tree. I would call these wells, and these are the result of birds, particularly sapsuckers. They're a kind of woodpecker that drills all these wells into the side of the tree. And then the sap is gonna seep out of the tree into these wells, and the birds can return over and over again and suck the sap. But that sap is important for the tree, so if there get too many wells, too much sap taken away, the tree might end up dying on this particular branch. But like I said earlier, the tree can survive by preserving, protecting the other parts of its body. So juniper here in Arizona can live hundreds, if not thousands of years because of these cool adaptations. So one thing about being out in nature is always trying to observe the differences. And here I can see the trail has changed. We're in a lot more of like a sandy kind of creek or river bottom here. And I can even see some of the discolored sand here is wetness. Water is flowing through here. So all the rain and snow that falls on the mountain behind us, it's gonna drain down through this corridor. And that also leads to different kinds of vegetation. So earlier we were looking at the juniper trees and the pinyon pine trees, kind of short, scrubby pines. But right here, we have a massive, magnificent ponderosa pine tree. The ponderosa pine does need more water than the pinyon pine and the juniper to grow to these tall heights. So right here where we have drainages, little bits of snow melt are gonna come down through here, rainfall is gonna drain through this area. It kind of creates a nice sandy creek, not quite a river, but this is where the water is gonna flow. And this ponderosa pine tree has taken root and it's taking advantage of that periodic drainage that'll come through this area. So as a naturalist, we could come right here and look at the cut of the tree, count up all these different rings, and get a rough estimate of how old this tree was before it was cut down. But with the ponderosa pine trees, there's a much quicker and easier way to get an estimate of the trees, and that's by looking at their bark. So up on the slope, I can see these kind of dark brown, almost black barked trees. Those are ponderosa pine trees that are young and still maturing. But once the tree goes through its maturing process, the bark color changes and it gets much more of an orange rusty color to it. But that maturing process does not happen until about 100 years into the tree's lifespan. So instead of sitting here and counting ring after ring after ring after ring, we can just kind of look at the trunk of the tree, look at the tree bark, and if it's got this orange color, we know the tree has reached at least 100 years, potentially all the way up to about 500 years is the average lifespan of a ponderosa pine tree. Right now, we are standing at the center of an old dormant volcano. This is called Red Mountain, and it is one of many cinder cones in the San Francisco volcanic field. But unlike our other cinder cones, this one has an exposed amphitheater that you can hike right into the center of. So how is it that I get to stand at the center of an old dormant volcano? Well, millions of years ago when the area was erupting, we had a fountain of lava shooting out of a volcanic vent into the air. These lava fountains spew up hot molten rock. As that molten rock rains down to the ground, it cools off and it creates a pile of volcanic cinder. And that's what we call a cinder cone. But usually the cones form right around the vent they're erupting from. But here, our volcanic vent is on the other side of this mountain. So something was occurring that pushed the lava fountain from the vent it erupted at over to the north. Now the other question about Red Mountain is what exposed the amphitheater here. If you look at it and think about volcanic activity, you might assume a later eruption blew out the side of the mountain and exposed the amphitheater. But if the volcanic vent is on the other side, why would eruption from there create volcanic activity right here? So another theory that I've learned about is steam. What if all that hot molten rock somehow trapped water? And that boiling water created a lot of gas, a lot of steam. All that steam pressure eventually built up underneath of the cinder cone, and over time that pressure caused an eruption to expose the amphitheater. So from a naturalist perspective, I'm trying to figure out why this is unique, why this particular cinder cone has an exposed amphitheater. And if we think about the fact that the vent is on the other side of the mountain, we could have potentially had a steam explosion here. Well, maybe when the volcano was erupting, there were tremendous thunderstorms going on in the area. And all of that wind and rain pushed over the Colorado Plateau, and as the molten rock shot out of the vent, it created an arch, sending the lava to the north. Then all of that volcanic cinder trapped rainwater underneath the hot molten rock. And the rainwater was the source of our steam. And over time, that steam built up, the pressure built below the ground, and eventually the pressure released, blew out the side of the mountain, exposing the amphitheater that we see today. So this is one of the only places in the Coconino National Forest that you can hike to and stand at the center and the heart of an old dormant volcano. So I'm standing here at the base of the San Francisco Peaks, and behind me is Humphreys Peak, Arizona's highest mountain. At 12,633 feet above sea level, no trees are going to be growing up there. It's so high up, the ground itself is frozen year-round. And you can see right now, we have a nice snow cap on the top of the mountain. Now, as you come down the slopes of the peak, trees will start to grow. And right here, we're standing just about 8,000 feet above sea level. And at 8,000 feet, we find nice groves of quaking aspen trees. This is one of our only deciduous trees in the area. So in the fall, as the leaves change into a nice golden color, this is a good place to come for a good autumn hike. The name quaking comes from the behavior of the leaves themselves. The leaf has a very long petiole, the piece that connects it to the branch. And as the wind comes through, it creates a nice quaking look to the leaves. They tremble with their nice golden color, and then over time the leaf falls away, and soon we'll be entering into winter. One of my favorite things about aspen trees is it's not actually trees plural. They are one massive organism. All the trees you see behind me are clones of one another, and they're sharing a common root system underneath the ground. Now those roots, they can remain dormant for years and years and years. And over time, pine trees will grow into the forest. They will grow taller than the aspen trees. They'll block out the sunlight. And the aspen needs a lot of sunlight to survive. So they might die, but their roots will stay dormant underneath the ground. And then over time, wildfires come through and burn down these pine forests. Well, if the fire comes through and burns all the pine trees, sunlight returns, and the dormant roots of the aspens will shoot up these small, fast-growing trunks that grow into enormous clusters. But this cluster is one tree, all sharing the same DNA and the same root system. Now this tree will grow, and over time, you'll have new, younger pine trees start to reestablish themselves in the forest. Those trees will eventually grow up taller than the aspens, and once again, they will block out the sunlight. The aspen trees here might die, but their roots remain dormant underground. And then over time, centuries go by, new fires burn, the pine trees are removed, and the aspens, they return once again. So right now we're standing right in the middle of an incredible natural process that has been going on for thousands, if not millions of years. The cycle of aspen trees growing, creating nutrition for the soil, the pine trees returning, colonizing the area, fires burning through, and then it all starts over with the aspen trees. So right now, the aspen leaves are turning their beautiful golden color for the fall. And that is because as we move from summer into fall, the days are getting shorter. There's less sunlight. It's coming in at a different angle. And chlorophyll is no longer the most efficient chemical for the leaves to use for photosynthesis. So now they're using a lot more what they call carotenoids for their energy production. But even into the winter time, as the trees lose their leaves, this tree will not go dormant. It also has chlorophyll in the white trunk of the aspen tree. And all throughout the winter, it can use that chlorophyll to produce energy, to produce sugars, and grow even taller. So every year, the tree can grow about 2 feet. From the spring, to the summer, to the fall, to the winter, the tree continues to grow. And that's why this tree can be one of the fastest growing first trees to recolonize a forest after a significant wildfire. Showed up to our campsite here for the night, and there is already a fire pit dug here. But you can see not all the rocks are still around, and someone was burning some construction wood, and this is filled with rusty nails and broken glass and just a bunch of stuff I don't want to deal with. So I'm digging a new fire pit. But this one, I'm digging a little bit deeper because we want to enjoy our campfire without all the smoke. So this is what they call a Dakota smokeless fire pit. This one hole is going to be the site of our fire. We're going to put all of our fuel, all of our wood, all of our combustible material down into this pit. Now on the side here, with my trowel shovel, I've been digging a smaller vent for the fire. So in theory, if we dig this down, and we connect the two, the oxygen is going to flow through this vent into our pit. And then as it burns up our fuel, that oxygen is going to fully combust the fuel, which is going to create a lot less smoke. Smoke itself is essentially soot, ash, oils, things that don't burn completely. The fuel is not completely combusting, so you get all this excess material coming off. That is the smoke. But in theory, if the oxygen flows down first and then up through the fire, that will create more of a full combustion that will give us nice fire, nice heat, but we shouldn't have any of that gnarly smoke. Now, this pit, I've dug a little bit deeper than our vent because the last process is connecting the two. So I've essentially got to dig out a tunnel between the pit and the vent, and as I dig through here, I'm going to let the bottom of our deeper pit kind of fill up with that extra soil, so I don't have to do the extra work of pulling it out. And yep, now we dig. See, I'm just clearing away the soil from the same level here in the pit as I've dug deep here in the vent. But there's even more room down below for the soil to fill in as I remove it from our tunnel. This is a good bit of extra work to build a campfire, but I think it's something that's fun to do, gives you an activity to get involved with, and at the end of it all, our fire should be much more pleasant because we won't have to breathe in the soot and the ash and the smoke coming from the pit. I'm about 1 trowel deep so far, so it looks like I got just 1 more trowel to go and our tunnel will be complete. Now again, this is nice because we've actually got really nice soft soil here, easy to dig through. Haven't hit too many rocks or obstructions along the way. Just getting this all cleared away and letting the bottom of our fire pit fill up. So the vent here is kind of the secret to the smokeless fire pit. Usually, if you just have a pit or a built-up fire, the oxygen is burning right here at the surface. And while that will burn the fuel, it's not going to create that complete combustion you're looking for. Whereas by digging down, sending the oxygen through the vent, through the tunnel, and beneath the fire, that fuel is going to burn much more efficiently. And as the oxygen comes through and burns the fuel, it should put off a slight amount of vapors, but not the harsh smoke that can sometimes make camping. I mean, we all love campfires, but when you're sitting there and the wind changes and the smoke blows right in your face, not always the best, most enjoyable time. So if you've got the free time and the tools to dig yourself a Dakota smokeless fire pit, you get all the benefit of the fire without having to deal with any of that smoke. And it's not the cleanest job in the world, but if you're trying to stay clean camping, you're not living. Now, when I started my fire pit, I was trying to think ahead, how far can I dig from this side? So in theory, our vent should be about a 4 arms length away from the pit itself. And then as I dig down, I should be able to reach my arm through and complete our tunnel. All right, guys, so our tunnel is complete. Now, I do want to fill in the pit a little bit more. So take some of the material we took out, add it back in. All right, so now our tunnel and the bottom of the pit are about at the same level. So in theory, all that oxygen should come in below the base of our fire. So the next thing we're going to do, take some of these twigs and build up our base. Just gonna make a nice platform here near the tunnel. I think from there, we've got a pretty good platform for our fuel to sit on top of. Now, let's add in some kindling. I love being in the ponderosa pine forest. Pine needles burn really, really nicely. Great something for our spark to catch on to. Now our fuel here is some campfire wood we bought from in town, and then some dead and downed sticks from the local pine trees. What you don't want to do is burn junk. Right here, I can see someone's old fire pit has a bunch of rusty nails, some construction metal, some glass, just a whole bunch of garbage that you might have burned, but is still left behind. So don't be like that. Burn natural, organic wood. All right, guys. Got the platform base, got the pine needle kindling, made a little teepee with some of our smaller logs. Now comes the fun part. So ferro rods here are like flint and steel, just a little bit more reliable. You got a nice piece of metal here, nice striking rod there, and as you hit, you get a spark. So let's see if we can get some of our kindling going. Oh, there we go. All right, we got the pit going. Looks like some of our fuel is igniting. And the other thing I like about a nice pit fire is that when we're done for the night, we can just take this material, completely smother the fire here, and that should completely prevent any risk of embers or wildfire spreading to our forests. So yeah, whenever you build a fire, best thing to do, use the material you used to dig out the pit to bury it later that night. And then even after that, make sure that you can feel the fire with your hands and it's not hot to the touch. Once the fire is completely smothered, all the oxygen, all the fuel is kind of underground, the fire should be completely cold. So here, in the Coconino National Forest, it is a fire-prone area, and wildfires are one of the biggest natural disasters we have to deal with. Even to this day, 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans, and a lot of that is just improper campfire etiquette and use. So I really like this pit-style fire because when we're done, we can just completely smother the whole thing, fill in our holes, fill in our vents, and that should completely drown out the fire, and it will be cold to the touch. Well, after a nice long day of hiking, nothing like getting to camp and settling down for a nice, relaxing evening by the fire.
Hire us to tell your story. As an independent team of filmmakers, we love producing documentaries for artisans of all trades, honoring skill, passion, and determination.
The fruits of our labor literally creates happiness.
Founded in 2020, we harness our collective experience and enthusiasm for storytelling to deliver content that resonates with viewers on every level.
Think big and think outside of the box.
We avoid the constant noise of clickbait news and outrage headlines, instead crafting more intimate narratives that touch on the purpose of life itself. Stories that not only inform but also inspire. Whether it's the art of agriculture, the science of fermentation, an innovative garage startup, or the intricacies of off-grid living, we're here to explore it all and invite you to join us in the discovery.
You're just working with what you have at hand instead of having unrealistic expectations.
We know the world is brimming with hidden stories waiting to be told. These are tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.
The biggest thing is to realize that there's nothing that you can't do.
Embodying the American spirit that with hard work, dreams really can come true. So whether you're a garage baker, homegrown mycologist, backyard farmer, or off-grid homesteader, send us a message and share your story with the world.